Testing. Hey, everybody. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, how's everybody doing? All right. As I just recently announced online, on Twitter, actually, I am just going to play this one piece today that's next in the list. It's going to be at about half speed, probably, when I go back and work it out. We'll see what happens here. I keep saying that. This is one of the most adventurous, acrobatic pieces I've ever played. This was assigned to me for my senior year recital in high school, and it was just a bunch of nonsense. Pretty much, it just seemed like a bunch of notes thrown all over the place just for the sake of being crazy hard. But no, there is an alchemical genius to this. Um, as I mentioned earlier, this is like a PhD thesis in half steps. It's so many levels of half step chromaticism in this piece. It's pretty brilliant. Anyways, let's just hear this. This is this is what it is. This is first time I've played Toccata in D minor by Sergei Prokofiev in a long, long time. Here you go. Better put my glasses on for this one. Ah. I love this part. How do I do that? This or this? Ah. like circus music in a weird, twisted world. That's a place. Favorite part? Least favorite part. That's the other part. Yeah, Toccata in D minor at stumble speed. Yeah, that one is really fun when you start to get some of those crazy parts down. I'm going to play through this again, but I didn't plan on stopping with little bits here and there, but I just got to with this one. And I'm basically going to play for maybe another half hour or hour or so on this, in the way that I'm really trying to drive home as sort of my master class approach for, kids young and old. They don't have to wait till they're older to learn a good protocol for practicing, which is, as opposed to the way that I did it growing up, which is first I'd argue about having to practice for longer than I would have had to practice in the first place, and then upon losing that argument, I'd go downstairs and look at whatever piece the teacher was having me work on, and I'd play it through once, play it again. Some of that's getting better, but some of it's still kind of tricky. Third time, and then go run out to play. And if I knew what I knew now back then, I would have made so much more better use of my time. I would have had so much more fun with it too. But everybody has their own path to understanding, and nowadays, what I'm trying to get across to everybody is we are so stretched for our time anymore. The kids, the adults, everybody. A lot on our plates. So if you're going to sit down and practice some piano, make the best use of your time. And the best use of your time is like the Vienna violinist. I wish I knew his name. Dave from the Sugar Beats was saying how he was interviewed once. This guy that would play the hardest stuff in the world, and they asked him, "What's your secret? How do you play all this virtuoso stuff?" And he said, "I learned the first part. I learned the hard parts first." That's what he said. And sure enough, go in and find those hardest spots. Do the focused work on those with everything else, but focusing on the hardest spots. As they start to iron out, then you're going to be attending to the other stuff, hopefully in that hierarchy of what's the next hardest stuff, right? So then at the end, when you've got it all under your fingers, the very most challenging stuff has had the most attention in the aggregate, and it's just the fast track to really starting to have fun with this stuff, because you don't really learn you don't open up the creative energy part of your brain to be able to dive into the interpretation and the dynamics and the phrasings. It's quite as much when you're still having to worry about the mechanics of it. So to iron out the trickiest parts of the mechanics, what I do is I play through it. I sit down, first warm up, especially with something like this. Don't dive right into this. You're going to hurt yourself. Play some scales or something easy. But then go through it once. Just kind of set the baseline for the day. See where you're at. See where those wrinkles are. One of your three best friends is your pencil. Go through and find those spots that one really kind of was a little pothole in the road that I needed to navigate. And then you go through that, however long it takes you to just, mark up, wrinkle, wrinkle, wrinkle. Then spend 80% of your time going through one at a time those spots, either in order or with the hard one first. You can keep track of it. And your second best friend, your journal. A journal that you have right there, not for anything else in your daily life, but just whenever you sit down to play, practice, time, how long, day, what'd you work on, any questions, thoughts and feelings, whatever. But it's dedicated to just this. Okay, and you keep track of those wrinkles. And your third best friend is when you're zooming in on a wrinkle. Then take your third best friend here and set the metronome to as slow as you need to not make a glitch. Okay, almost, maybe a little tiny glitch there. Up a minor ninth, down 2 octaves for that hand. Meanwhile, this one, actually has to stretch to a major ninth. Now notice, when we're ironing out, we have this process called zooming and looping. And if you could see that what I'm doing here, there's two measures, 1 and 2. Let's see, he's written this in 4/4, so it's actually 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a. So there's two measures of 2/4, 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a. I was saying it double, actually. Those were 30-second notes according to our metronome here, but 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a. So you find the metronome setting that's you don't even have to worry about hitting the right note. It could be tediously slow like it is now, but this is not me performing right now. This is me expressing the details of the master class process that will take you along quite quicker than if you were just doing it the old Scotty way. Yeah, you know. Okay, so, and especially with this piece, remember the three best friends. Your pencil for marking up the spots, your journal for keeping track of the spots that you worked on, and your metronome. You know, write down your metronome speed in there. Oh, today I did it at this particular spot at 80 BPM, 80 beats per minute. So, and third best friend, yeah, the metronome is especially important on this one because it is a toccata. A toccata comes from the word touch, and this is, Bach wrote toccatas, and obviously this is a famous toccata too. I think Ginastera did some toccatas. I was just playing. I know that one thing is pretty toccata-ish yesterday, even though it was called a danza. But toccatas are especially studies in just articulation and in just the visceral hand movement, touching these keys with your fingers, almost like it's a percussion instrument. Allegro marcato. Yeah, this is far from allegro. What's allegro going to be if we eventually got this up to speed? My metronome has allegro starting at, just 120. Okay. Faster than 2 clicks a second is that kind of terminator point on the metronome for allegro. And what are we at? We're at 80. So it's not exactly half speed, but it's close. But it's so important to do it evenly at half speed. Now, usually good technique is like Horowitz style, where you're playing crazy stuff and your hands are barely even moving. Here, it's not to become all Liberace flamboyant style, which is, I'm not saying it's not important to, put some life into your show, and I do. I would be the last person to point fingers at somebody that was indulging in extraneous movement, let's put it that way. But typically classical piano, just, you want to be able to have like a quarter on the back of your hand not falling off, while you're playing. I'm going to turn this off while I'm talking because it's kind of annoying. But for toccatas, it's not gratuitous to be doing some extra movement for the sake of that percussiveness, Not overdoing it, I'll have to go back and look at Martha's hands. She was the one I just shared on Twitter, playing this. Like one of the best performances I've seen, and it's toccata. It's just, you can't help but have this kind of attack and recoil thing. That's like almost like it's like the piano keys hitting the strings themselves in a way. That's a toccata. It's boom, 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 and now you're on the other end of that in the same sort of hammer-ish way. But the farther you get away from the keys, and this is why you do really want to have conservative hand movement when you're all over the place, is because the less movement you use to do the same thing, the less opportunity there is for timing unevenness. That is the last thing you want with something like this. You want these 16th notes to be 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a, you know, it's like, actually let's hear what 120 would sound like for that. Just counting it for the slow side of Allegro, as it were. That's 120, 1000, 1000, 2 clicks per second is 120. Ticka 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 ticka. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E. Yeah. Oh wait, that's a 126. Let's hear 120. It's hardly any different. 1 E and a 2 E and it's still pretty quick. I'll have to see what she played it at, because maybe the Allegro Marcato. Marcato means march. Maybe that kind of gives you some license to be a little bit on the the faster side of moderato, we'll say, because that's pretty quick at 120. I don't think Martha was playing it that. We'll go check that out later. But nonetheless, who actually sits down and does this methodically, finds those hard parts, just loops them so much they even forget that they're looping them with the metronome the whole time. It reminds me of, I think it was Glenn Frey. It might have been Don Henley, but I think it was Glenn Frey from the Eagles. Somebody asked him why he was just so dead on with the guitars, just could play some crazy hard stuff himself. And his answer was, I have a high tolerance for repetition. And yeah, that's what it comes down to. It is homework. It is work on your own. But it can also be pretty relaxing when you do settle into that looping and just almost a meditation. Use your breath. You know, it's amazing with this heady stuff. You know, sometimes you'll forget to breathe. You're so into it with your brain and getting so down these rabbit holes. So yeah, breathe while you're doing this too. Okay, so and that's, you know, what the master class is. You go through and you just sink in. You're not going to have time to do all of the sections, you know, that need the attention quite to that degree, but keep track of which ones you do attend to. You could say measure numbers, but that's another thing. If you could see, you know, I have the music here, right? And but also I've gone through all these and pretty much sketched out outlines with you know, with the more traditional songs, I'll actually write chord charts for some of these tunes, even when they get really jazzy, like the Debussy and the Chopin. I'll try to chart it out as if it were a chord chart, because that just gives me less to memorize, because then instead of like, you know, 7 notes I'm playing, it's all like, oh, that's a C9 chord. And it just kind of like limits the possibilities of which notes you have to remember. Well, you get to something like, you know, how do you write a chord chart for this 20th century stuff? Yeah, I kind of did it with Hinastera, but this one I just outlined and gave some sort of theory-esque or picturesque title to each section, just to kind of have some mileposts rather than just 1, 2, 3 or A, B, C. I actually do that with the Bach. How did that one start? Yeah. My same teacher, Jean Rohr, actually that was the thing that she put on my plate after the toccata, and by that time I was graduating high school and never really did much more on that, except when I got older and wanted to learn all these pieces, because I was really psyched to have Jean Rohr, rest in peace, bless her heart, especially what I put her through. She said she had some gray hairs on her head with my name on them, and it was largely due to this toccata. We're not, you know, I got through it, but I don't know if I could hear back to that. I'd probably be grimacing till the cows come home. Okay, but tangent was the Bach piece, where Mrs. Rohr actually said, you know, put section A, section B, section C, just like alphabetize the different sections the whole way, because then it's kind of a fun game. Ooh, can I start at D? Ooh, can I start at W? Which is what you really got to be able to do, because otherwise, old Scotty method of memorizing by momentum and ear and muscle memory. It's great when you're by yourself, because if you stumble, it's like no big deal. But you do that in front of just one person. It's weird. It's like, I don't even, I've played this perfectly 100 times and I don't actually know the notes that I'm playing, come to think of it. That's sort of right brain memorization. And it's important. Yes, it's a huge part of memorizing. But it's it's a setup for disaster if that's all you're riding on, because seriously, when just one person's listening to you, even if it's a friend, it all of a sudden this autopilot stuff just becomes way up in your face, and you get really self-conscious about it and you and them being there, and it's a downward spiral from there, unless you're like, oh, I just went past like section F, and that's when it actually was on the 4 chord and did this, whatever you can say to yourself to remember those mileposts. It gives you something to rely on when you do have a little flub, little in just right brain surfing with it mode. Let me turn. I'm hearing some sound coming out of my studio monitors, so excuse me, I'm gonna turn this off. I might need to replace my studio monitors because that's not coming from the board. Okay, but without any further ado, yes, if anybody happens to be watching this is, like I said, just mostly fly on the wall stuff for anybody that wants to watch. Let me get a drink of coffee first here, because I've been talking a lot. Okay, and to wrap up the talking, once you've done all of the methodical 80% of your rehearsal dedicated to ironing out the wrinkles, go back at the end and, without getting too crazy, give it a once through, maybe 90%, 80% up to speed, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Because those wrinkle spots, they're not going to be completely evened out, but if you went through and you did all that metronome looping, zooming back, zooming in, getting some momentum into it, closing your eyes, see what happens with all these spots, then when you go give you your final reward run through at the end, you will see progress having been made. They're not going to be potholes quite as big as they were before. There's still going to be little bumps maybe, but you'll see, like, this is that much more fun because of all that focused work I did. And then that's the feedback that you're going to be giving yourself, that's going to motivate you to take the time subsequently to do that sinking into it, the high tolerance for repetition, and just breathing with it, really. So that's essentially my masterclass in a nutshell. And I need to go find the date that I did this during lockdown, where I was really, really getting it down. And I probably spent a good 2 hours just talking through these elements. One good thing about looking at this again is not only am I seeing more of this half-step stuff going on everywhere, but there's places that the wrinkles where sometimes you have to write in the fingering if they're not giving you the fingering there, because fingering, especially in some of these weird runs, the ones that do all these thirds in a row, you gotta kind of have to decide when you're doing 2 and 4, when you're doing 1 and 3, and it's not always regular, just because of the the sequence of white and black keys as they're going by, or as you're going by them. That's why we do different fingerings, because it's all about what fingering can you plan ahead to make it smooth, like you've got a quarter on the back of your hand, and as motionless as possible. That's the goal here. Okay, so and I meant to say that it was this toccata that at one point, and I tried to find it in my journal, but I couldn't track it down. There's so many of these on YouTube right now that I need to just hire somebody to go through and take notes on. And but this was probably the best masterclass that I my best COVID masterclass was the toccata. And if anybody wants to go track that down, I'll give you $20, promise. I'll Venmo it to you. Okay, let's. I'm not going to turn on the metronome until we get to some parts that I really want to sink into. But I'm just going to play this through, kind of like before, as a little bit more evenly, and I'm going to stop and comment and loop on the way at these different sections. And I'm going to, like, just for the record here, because maybe I'll listen to this while I'm sleeping and talk to myself. Okay, and remind me of all these parts. I've got it outlined into 3 main sections, which is kind of typical. 3 acts, 3 movements. Section A, big A, has this 24-bar intro. It says, and that is from 1A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's all of that stuff. Okay, so that's a separate thing. That's just its section title and an actual set of 24 measures. But then what we're calling number 1, little a. Okay, let's get that far. Let's do the 24-bar intro first. I'm going to put down the una quarta pedal to try to keep it pianissimo, even as I play it kind of quickly. Okay, if you're listening really carefully, if you could probably, you could see how you actually, with this view down here, you can actually see how the piano moves. And that's because on a grand piano, the hammer's hitting from below, and the hammer's attached to these keys. So when the key bed moves to the side, then so does the hammer, and it only hits one of the 3 strings per note. It just helps give you that extra edge when you're trying to make it really super soft. But when it's super soft, you can tell when it's on or off because the tone quality changes. And there's this little... Now that might be kind of cool. You could have that tonal shift go along with the slight crescendo. Let's hear what it sounds like here without me taking the soft pedal off. Yeah, let's see. That's more natural and more subtle. But yeah, I think I'll just keep the soft pedal on through that. Okay, starting at the beginning, really focusing on evenness. I will, sit down for 5 minutes sometime and just go da 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 with the metronome. Okay, this is the first expression of the half step. He's just doing these octave things, and then he does a major third, and then a full major triad, and back to that, which is like, yay, traditional harmony, dun 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 dun, dun against a D, which is not a half step, but a whole step up from C. And these 2 notes are on whole steps on either side, and you'll hear me keep talking about how this is all about half steps. So it's almost like he's kind of wink, 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 nudge, nudge. Traditional chords with making them by whole steps there at first, and that's all at the piano, pianissimo. And then the first note where it's accented forte is an E flat. the dreaded minor ninth, as Steve Owen, founder of pretty much the founder of the award-winning jazz department at the University of Oregon, he always called that the dreaded minor ninth, which is an octave. Remember, we're setting up octaves down here. That's an octave plus a half step. That's why dreaded minor ninth is the one thing you really try to avoid more than anything with all your explorations of jazz harmony, let's say. But, okay, point made. Half step. And then 2 octaves down to this E flat, half step up from here, and then first return in the left hand moves that up to a half step to an E flat, but then for the rest of it is the E a whole step above D. So it's like see, I got just that. Look at those 3 E flats in a row. The E flat being a half step up from D, which is the tonal center. E flat, E flat, E flat. Okay. So where does the right hand come up? E flat. Oh, this doesn't go up to the E flat till after that one. And then this comes back up to D, but am I going to go under or above? Oh, but this is on E natural by then, so E flat, D, E flat, E flat. Oh no, there is a D before that. Yeah, I never really looked at this that closely. And then 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. Okay, so this is wrinkle number 1. Let's write that down. And even though this is already highlighted, I'm going to highlight it again because, you know, the stuff that gets the darkest highlights will get the most attention at a glance and statistically result in those parts getting the most attention, which is the whole point. Okay, so, gosh, it's been a long time since I opened up this journal. Oh man, I don't even want to say. I did hit it in July this year, but wait. Let's just strike that. Okay, today is October 26th, 2022, and we're doing Toccata in D minor. Okay, so what are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Measure 12. Measure 12, I will call it, and then I'll put in parentheses A, 24 bar intro. So I know which section I'm on in my outline. Okay, and what is it? Yay, all right. That was the best I'd played it yet. And notice, that was after I took a step back and talked a little bit, wrote a little bit. That's just like left brain, right brain. Left brain being, what are the notes? What am I actually doing? What is this code? What are these rhythms? You know, to right brain just like, oh, it feels like this. It sounds like that. It goes like this. There's also kind of and this is pop psychology. I know this is all like painting with really, really broad strokes. But, you know, in addition to that that left brain, right brain thing. There's also this front brain, back brain thing where it's like you're really thinking about this stuff and using your frontal lobe to express the art of it at the same time that you're trying to sink into the mechanics of it. But then there's your brain, your kind of reptile stem back there, your unconscious, that is an important part of learning too. That's why I listen to Mandarin conversations when I'm sleeping, because I know that it's just immersing me that much more, and it doesn't bother me. It kind of helps me go to sleep, actually. So, but sometimes when you're just working on anything and really just taxing your brain, it's like, again, breathe and take a step back, do something, go for a walk, even just like that 1 minute here. Boom, I return to this, and yeah, I kind of let a different part of me work on it, and now I can remember that it goes. See, and then it's fun. And then when you get to that part, you know it's coming up. You don't get like, here it comes. You're like, here it comes. Okay. And if I wasn't sitting here live streaming, I would probably do that for quite a while and sit there and breathe and think about other stuff. And again, that frontal lobe and your back brain, let that kind of go too when you're actually playing. Think about it. But then just start to. I should try to do my Mandarin flashcards. Actually, that's an idea. But remember, as a big part of it is zooming in and looping, but it's also about zooming out a little bit, maybe back the whole way of that section, and getting a run into it, getting back some of that right wing, right brain, some of that right brain in the flow, rolling with it, and the visceralness of it. Kind of get rolling into it, and then see what happens when you get there. How much you actually have to think about. Ooh, what am I going to do when I get to this spot? Okay, not perfect. So let's loop it some more then. Actually, let's zoom back a little bit, not as far, and a little slower. It's that first jump. So maybe just zoom in that much. Because that was the weak link of everything, see? And be playful when you zoom in. It's like it doesn't have to be only tedious and monotonous. Have some fun with it. Well, I've got to do this over and over to really not worry about it. Let's have some fun with dynamics. Maybe a little bit fun with the rhythm, but I wouldn't do that too much because you don't want to mess with your muscle memory. was just about to go on there, and that was the first time I missed that. That time I missed that one. And then I'll play a game like I have to do it 3 times perfectly before I can zoom back out and get a little head start on it again. And if I mess up at all, I have to start all over. Actually, I tell the kids you have to do it as many times as you are old. But I'm not going to hold myself to that. Okay, I'll count that as 1. Count that as 2. Okay, so I get to go back at the beginning of the section now and see what happens. Do it at the same speed this time. Yeah, that was in the beginning. Let's put the pedal on. Nope. I'm wanting to go that thumb to E flat 1 time earlier. 1 E and a 2 E and a stay on D. I'm really wanting to go to the E flat there when I'm not thinking about it. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1. Yeah. So here, here, here is the order of E flats, not here, here, here. But then I gotta play it with the left hand. That time I messed it up, but I was in the groove until then. That's the rhythm of the E flats isolated. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E. Yeah, so it's well, it's an 8th note worth, then 16/16. So there's an interesting kind of zoom in where I'm zooming in, but I'm taking out notes in between, just so I can hear the E, E flat, E flat, E flat, E flat, and the fact that the rhythm isn't even. It's long, short, short. I should get in the octave here again, like that, because I've just been, this left hand has been the only thing that's been completely unchanging for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bars is the first time, well, the 13th bar is the first time that it does go up to there. And these are on the offbeat, so it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and the whole way, 12 bars, and then the 13th bar, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a, and that it's that last of the 3 E flats, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E. I forgot it. It's in 2/4, not 4/4. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. 1E and a 2E and a 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 1E and now from the octave position here, 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E. And remembering it goes up there. There I went that again. Bum bum. Okay, that's a way of remembering it. It's just that double octave. It's the first time that half step thing comes in. And here, 2 octaves down, and then there. Okay, I'm going to do that section again, and not probably going to call it quits for today. I got a lot of other stuff to do. But the whole point is, like, look, the master class ended up focusing on just these 2 measures. Now, I was also expositing a lot on the master class here at the beginning of the reboot of this series, this classical series I'm doing. Kind of the fly in the wall rehearsal, and eventually, yeah, when we get this back memorized, then we can start performing it again. But you know what? I'm gonna really take my time this wave, because it is so satisfying when you do take just one little tiny bit. It's not always going to be just 2 measures, because I'm not going to be talking as much about all the details of the process, but I will be talking a lot about that, because I'm telling you, you use your time wisely, you'll get 5 times more out of the minutes that you spend practicing a week, at least. It's just, and it's so much more enjoyable, it's not just like, some of that's fun, some of it's kind of annoying. But now, something that was always a little thorn in my my finger, now I know what I'm doing. Almost. But you can see this is up to speed. I kind of just naturally clicked up to tempo when I was doing that last looping. Let's see if those are quarter beats, then 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E, that's like at 96. So let's make a note of that in our book. So looped at 80 BPM, and I'll say at tempo equals 96 BPM, which I would be happy to accomplish. Okay, let's see what that 96 was. Let's do it with the metronome, because we're cool, right? Okay. Wow. Okay, so I did not see that coming. Yeah. We can call that previews for next week. That was up to section 1A, which I call D minor expanding, because you get this right, you get this cross hand stuff with the left hand going back and forth over the right hand that's really doing nothing but this motif. How many times? One, and a one, and a two, and a three, and a four. Then switches the whole thing up to the what would be the 4 chord from the minor 1 to the minor 4 on G minor, same figure. And notice you can't really see, well, I guess you can. Those, whether it's the D 3 times in a row or the G 3 times in a row, notice how I'm alternating my finger. I'm going 1 2 1 1 2 1. I was taught to always do that for repeated notes, but it's, again, especially important on toccata because then you are treating them like hammers that this one can come down while the other one's recoiling and getting ready to come down after it. 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 2 1. Well, actually 1 2 because it's got to go up there on the beat for the pickup on the 4 chord. And a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3E and a 4. Then this weird thing. See what I'm saying about the half steps? Those are all half steps except for when twice you have to jump up a whole step for the grace note to come down to the half step up. There. And then same thing there. And that's the kind of stuff that makes it so I don't have to memorize G, G sharp, A, G sharp, with the B flat to A, G, G sharp, B flat A, G sharp A sharp B, A sharp B, C, D, D flat, C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, all these half steps from, what's the lowest one? Actually, it's a whole octave. Look at that, from the G to the G. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. It just seems so random when I was 17 and 18. But things like this come in analysis nuggets like this come out when you separate stuff too, and that's something that I haven't talked about in the whole course of actually that's probably like one of the main elements of zooming in and looping and the repetition and the little game of how many times you have to do it perfectly before moving on. That's a big part of that too, is sometimes you have to do right hand alone, sometimes you have to do left hand alone. I play a game with the kids where it's like let's say it happens a lot in Minuet in G major, commonly known as being by Bach, but it turns out it was actually it was a friend of the family named Christian Petzold that wrote those 2 pieces. That one, everybody knows the first one in G major, but who knows Minuet? And I don't know. No. Etc., etc. Gorgeous. They weren't written by Bach. They were written by Christian Petzold in the same notebook that he was keeping for his 3rd wife, Anna Magdalena, and writing some simple but cool little tunes for her to practice as she was learning. And turns out the most famous of all of those 2 pieces that were attributed to him were not written by him. People pretty much are generally agreed, I believe. So, hands separately though. Yeah. And what's going on there is bum, 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 bum. No, not that. It's A. Okay, so we've had half steps. We've had some some whole steps, octave plus a whole step, but you get the point. Now we have the tritone, which is exactly 6 of the 12 half steps of an octave. So it's exactly the halfway point. Usually in classical aesthetic, things, want to be balanced and even and golden ratio and everything. Well, here's something that's exactly cut in half, but rather, which is normally a symmetric thing in visual art, that's kind of somewhat pleasing. Well, that is the Devil's Interval. I think that might be an urban legend. One of my students sent me a YouTube video of a guy that really goes down the rabbit holes of music, and I think he said that was fake news. That the tritone was deemed the Devil's Interval by the Pope. We'll have to look that up. But tritones become a big part of this exploration of the half steps, because it's a half step less than the nice Twinkle Twinkle fifth, and it's a half step more than Here Comes the Bride, the nice fourth, perfect fourth they call it, fifth, perfect fifth. What's in between a perfect fourth and a perfect fifth? So look what he's doing here. He's going, wow, this is happening. This is starting on that E flat, which this is at the end of this whole climb, at the beginning of this section. Let's do this again. And then all that time the hand is going half step, half step, same note, the note that you just got to, that is half step by itself, half step, half step, half step, half step, half step. So it's going like, if I took those things that are melodic and made them harmonic, squishing them on top of each other, it'd sound like expanding outward. It's not just 2 each time, it's 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 1 1 to give it a kind of cool syncopation. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 1. And then you go put them together. Just transpose everything up to the 4 chord. And then oh no, it's going first, it's going E flat to G, which is a nice interval by itself, but with the with the A here, it's a tritone, and then the G. Okay, look at this. It's going to go A, G, E flat, G, A, D flat. And so let's combine these two that it's going to jump to. That's a tritone. Let's combine these two that it's going to jump to. Tritone. So we're not kind of like overlapping melodic tritones. And then this one goes up a half step. So this is a nice, Here Comes the Bride, 4th. Wow, this one's still unchanging as a tritone. So combining all 4 of these together and then all 4 of these together, it's going to sound first like this, tritone, and then Here Comes the Bride, 4th, and then the tritone. Now, I'm just talking out loud here. I've probably lost you by this point, but, again, this is all fly on the wall. And this is actually really, really good for me to be verbalizing all this stuff because, you know, I'm a visual learner, I'm a tactile learner, but I am an audio learner too. So I'm just hitting all these bases. And I'll be able to, like I said, this is all automatically archived at YouTube, so I'll be able to listen to this in the background. And every little bit helps when it comes to memorizing this stuff. Yeah, so now I have that much more command on that passage because I know all these are eighth notes, except for those two grace notes. And I was going to say have a cup of coffee while I'm doing that and not thinking about it. And since I took brain power that way, and then I faltered. But the whole point is have it so down that you can talk. It's kind of like, you know, I'm teaching kids to be ambidextrous by using their weak hand as much as possible for everything. And, you know, opening doors, that's an easy one. Picking stuff up, that's an easy one. Brushing your teeth, you know, maybe a little more attention. But then writing, you know, that's always the final challenge. But you do that, and especially, you know, that's what Charles Dowd, the late, great Charles Dowd, percussion wizard at the U of O and Eugene Symphony, would tell all of his students, do everything you can with your left hand. Or with your weak hand is what I meant. That's not fair to call it weak. Your non-dominant, that sounds bad too. Your other hand. Oh, I don't want to other my hand. Okay. Both hands. No, because you want to focus on, it's like basketball. You want to get really good at basketball. Tie your, I'm just going to say I use most of the time hand behind your back, and then also have something where you can't see the basketball. Do that, make you use your other hand and not even look. You're going to be a basketball wizard. But we're not talking about basketball wizardry here. We're talking about piano wizardry here. No, let's see. Oh, and look at the difference. If we squeeze down that first jump, that's 2 octaves and a whole step. So there's a whole step separation between those. Oh no, but that's what it's going to. That's not what it goes to first. It's that expanded minor sixth. Yeah. And this is one of those things, you know, part of learning this piece, granted, is just knowing what notes you're supposed to play. But even when you know what notes you're supposed to play, you're jumping so far. You know, like I said, when you're playing, you want to move as little as possible because you have that, you know, that much less room for error in both timing and the notes themselves. And dang, even slow requires just some physical accuracy. 3-dimensional accuracy. And then the whole thing's transposed. Okay, let's stop there. That was good. That was just scenes from next week. But I will, not next week, but next time I do this. Okay, and just like, yeah, it looks like this is the one I'm really focusing on, is of all the 12 of really diving into, because just like learn the hard parts first, well, I guess we're learning the hardest song first, because after that we got the Bach, which isn't so hard with the notes as much as the taccatiness of it. J'aime ne paid, that was pretty. Let's finish with that. Just do a couple easy songs, because for all of you dedicated people who actually am still watching this session here on October 26, 2022, focusing on Prokofiev's Toccata in D minor. We did measure 12, da 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 da, and then we started to preview hands separately of 1A, D minor expanding, 1B, which is when it transposes to G minor, expanding by half steps. And then I'm calling this Piccadilly. And I call that G sharp light cascade. We didn't really do that much. I'll put it in parentheses. Oh, those are subgroups of 2A. Roman numeral 1, I'm calling G Piccadilly. And then Roman numeral 2 inside of 2B is the G sharp light cascade, which I'll put in parentheses because I barely touched that. Touched that, get it? Toccata, touch. Now that is a music geek joke. Let's stop blah blah blahing. And it's time for the favorite part of every episode called Gummy Ring Fix. Sometimes I get to turn on these pages so fast and furiously that I impact the structural integrity of my 3 hole punches. And let's go. There it is. Now we should go over and add another one on the other side. Just better to do it now. Let's have to waste 10 seconds somewhere down the line. Okay. Let's not do concerto. Let's go to... Actually, let's do concerto just so we can say we went through all of them once for this reboot. F. I'm not euphemizing a swear word there. This is section F, which is the first wrinkle. Let's say, hey, let's write it down as a wrinkle. Bum, ba-da-bum. When you do hands separately, that gives you good, more attention to your fingering. That's what's getting me. Figaro, 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 Figaro. Yeah, you gotta slow it down. Don't let your muscles. I mean, I know I'm just flying through these here at the end here, and I didn't even intend to do any looping here, but I couldn't resist. But I have to really kind of say, am I going to be looping or not? Because if I'm looping, but if I'm not slowing down to where it's easy to do it without a glitch, then your muscles are learning it the wrong way. Your muscles will remember the timing, and if you literally incorporate good solid timing at a slow speed, then as you gradually click up with the metronome, then you do get quicker, but the whole way along your muscles are remembering it evenly more and more and more. Okay, I'm not going to do any more looping on this. Let's just play from here. It bugs me. It's all fingering. It's not looping if you don't do it 5 times. Why does it say 1-3? That's the problem. I wasn't paying attention to the fingering. Okay, now we'll move on. Evenly is the thing with Bach. And it's evenly not just with the timing, but the articulation on those runs. Hard to keep that 16ths in those left hand even. Not to mention the trill even that whole time. That's the other part. T, section T. Hey, that was fun. So Bach, it's about fingering and the evenness of timing and the evenness of the articulation, because you don't want it to be no da 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 da. But especially with thumbs, because they can just kind of stand out like like a sore thumb, really, because they're heavier. So sometimes you have to kind of just have the slightest little bit of rain on them. And keeping fingers close to the keys really helps even things out too. But that, probably one of the most important parts of the song to really even out, because it's kind of setting up the final fanfare, which I think is a lot more manageable to come off, like the way you want to then. That wasn't so bad. You want it to be like a swath of notes, not just a bunch of notes. Okay, that was Bach's Concerto in F. Concerto is typically an orchestra with a solo instrument, but he was trying to imitate what a concerto would be like for his harpsichord. He didn't really play piano as much in his life. They just came around at the end. So this whole thing is like kind of like the opening, or the whole string orchestra, which is what in the Baroque day, it was mostly strings with some woodwinds and maybe a timpani for the percussion, but not nearly all the brass, not nearly like what it grew into the classical and then romantic, and then 20th century started adding electronic music and world instruments in there. And yeah, the orchestra just keeps getting bigger and bigger as Western European classical music evolves. And back in Bach's day, it was like that Vivaldi stuff. Dun, 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 dun. It's like I'd have to think to know when woodwinds come in on that, but because it's just so mostly the string orchestras back then. And so he's doing that, dun, 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 and then it would. Actually, let's see. Just a final comment on this is that whole opening through section D, as I'm calling it, ends with that fanfare. Same thing. The whole piece is bookended by this opening and a reprise at the end, finishing with the. And then the orchestra is that, while the soloist is. Which is so Bach's imitating an actual concerto with just a keyboard. Okay, let's fast forward 150 years or so to Erik Satie. You've heard this on many a film score and commercial, but it's a beautiful piece. This is why people love it so much. It's called his first Jean de Pédy. Oh, that's too high. classy. Yeah. Yeah. Did that the first time too. That's kind of a standard by Eric Satie, part of the French sort of. I don't know if they called him an impressionist, like Debussy and Ravel, but it seems kind of impressionistic to me. Um, and just like those impressionists and like Chopin, I really do feel they're starting to like add notes to our just the basic triad and seventh harmonies that are really precursors of the jazz stuff to come. And I think if there isn't a music history thesis written on this yet, I think somebody should really examine how significant Scott Joplin was in bridging what are now pretty two disparate worlds of like highbrow European classical music, academic tradition and stuff, with that other pop stuff, rock and roll, blues, jazz, country, funk, everything else, right? It's like the rock and roll stuff really came out of the blues, which along with jazz was kind of developing. I think the common ancestor there was ragtime. And and I haven't studied this stuff scholarly by any means, but I think it would be an interesting subject to see how much direct linkage there was to the Chopin stuff used in like ninths and 13ths with Scott Joplin coming and doing with ragtime, and then that just becomes like bread and butter harmony voicing, um, with jazz especially. Well, thing about Scott Joplin is opposed to many of those blues and jazz cats that didn't have any formal training, didn't read a lick of music, but just knew what they were doing and had rhythm that was to die for. Um, Scott Joplin was a classically trained pianist. He had a piano teacher. I should know this guy's name. But so we know that he was playing the literature, and which at that time, turn of the century, 19th century to 20th century, yeah, this stuff coming out of France, this piano music coming out of France was super super fresh. I mean, when was Jean Napade written? I'm going to say like 1880s. Let me look that up really quick because that's an actually I should know this one too. I did have these listed with all their dates when I was live streaming last time. I should look that up again and bring those in. Gymnopédie number 1 was written in, I'm going to guess 1892. When 1895. Oh no, he completed the whole set in 1888, and then they published it separately a little bit later. But yeah, okay, so the Trois Gymnopédies, all three of them released on April 2nd, 1888. And when was Maple Leaf Rag? Was that 1899 or? How much time was there between Gymnopédie and Maple Leaf Rag? 1899. Okay, so 11 years, 11 and a half years almost between Gymnopédie and this, which I am going to get my glasses on for, because, yeah, this is the last of the 12 songs that I had down pretty well. Like, I could at least play them by memory by myself, which is a lot different than playing them by memory with other people around, like I'm saying. And that's why we do this full process when we do proper rehearsal, proper time-efficient rehearsal. Okay, but it's fun to be playful too, and this is one of the most playful pieces I know. This one, I grew up playing the James Bastian simplified version in the key of G, but finally got around to learning this in its original key, full arrangement on the piano in the key of A flat, and this is challenging. those last two sections aren't still over the course of my life aren't as intuitive to me because the simplified James Bastian version in G only had the first two sections. The first section, section A, the one that everybody knows, that's B, or that's A, and then everybody knows kind of the answer to that in the section B, and then it goes back, does those repeated A, B, B, and then back to A, right? And then, it goes to the new section C, which they didn't have in that easy version, but everybody knows because they saw the sting. Okay, and then instead of going back to A, like a rondo form would be, where you go A, B, A, C, A, B, A, or something like that. This goes A with repeats, B with repeats, A with no repeats, and then on to C with repeats, and then on to D for the final, you can call it a coda maybe, but it's just, I just think of it as 4 different themes, and just not going back to the A at the very end. It's like, I guess, modern pop form, you'd want to come back, da da da, yay, final chorus, or final, part of the song that everybody knows once more. But here, it doesn't happen. They just do that. Both of the sections that I didn't even really know about when I was learning this as a kid, but now are, of course, like some of my favorites. It's kind of challenging because it really gets this stride piano going. Let's take it a little slower. Let's try that again. Wrapping everything up today, one thing that ties this back with the Prokofiev is listen to the bass. Well, we got some half steps there, which is typical for ragtime, but here's what I wanted to point out. What's that? That's a tritone! Again, the tritone! And then, fourth. As I was playing through this for the first time in, again, like years, it seems like years. It said 2020, and it's my last entry in the book there. I can't believe that. But, because I have played a little bit here and there, but seriously, building a concrete wall and dealing with my poor dad, and it's just kind of, boom, needs care. Now, and that's been going on with me this last year, working harder than I've ever worked in my life as a homeowner, right up to the point of taking them to Montana, getting back here, busting out some more in the backyard, trying to get the studio into tip-top shape like it's never been the whole time, all leading up to 9 weeks away, which kind of I'm still sort of unpacking. I'm going to start out one of these sessions with the picture of the day. I've got so many pictures I got to go through from the UK that are just rocking my world. So yeah, that'll give me some motivation to kind of start organizing those a little bit, as if anybody cares, but it's kind of fun for me. And we want to make this as interesting as possible. But last thing I'm going to say is that when I was playing these all for the first time, I had talk about a big step back from them. Well, again, that front brain, back brain thing, these times in our life where we don't really have as much time to play our instrument, unless you're doing this for your job, don't worry about it. This should be fun for you, and like the thing that you go to when you do have enough little things checked off of your to-do list, or whenever, or just make it this once or twice a day that you can know that you can sit down and do like just a little bit, but have fun with it. And that's the way I'm going to be approaching this next wave of accomplishing this stuff. This isn't the most important thing I got going on right now. I got so much on my plate developing the camps for next summer, and just teaching back up to full steam again, which is awesome. Got the best students in the world yet again. But one of the reflections I had on the Scott Joplin, as I'm rememorizing it, I'm going to focus on starting with just knowing how to follow the bass line. In fact, I could even solfege it if I really wanted to own it. So what key are we in? They actually switched to 5 flats for section C. So now we've gone from 1, 5, 1 in the key of A flat, which is what it's been up to at this point. But now we're going to D flat, so now E flat is re, fa, mi, re, ti, do, sol, mi, do, di, re, fa, mi, re, ti, do, sol, mi, do, ti, la. What are we gonna call this? D, la, di, mi, la, di, mi, la, re, fa, fi, with a diminished 7th arpeggiated, sol, la, re, 5 of 5, 5 of 1, 5 of 5, 5 of 1. Some might say 2, 7, 5, 1. Either way is fine with me. Just depends on your theory teacher. Do, fa, re, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, ti, do, sol, mi, do, di, re, fa, mi, re, ti, do, sol, mi, do, ti, la, di, sol, re, la, di, mi, la, di, mi, la, di, mi, la, re, fa, diminished chord stuck on fi, sol, la, 2, 5, 1. That's fun. Let's see if I can play it all, both hands, and sing the solfege of the bass line. Re, fa, mi, re, ti, so, mi, do, di, re, fa, mi, re, ti, do, so, mi, do, ti, la, di, la, di, mi, la, re, fa, fi, so, la, so, la, so, la, re, so, do. Okay, now without singing it. Yeah, see what I mean? That's why they have you learn solfege in school, because now, because I've actually sung that bass line, literally, with the syllables, it's so much easier to approach it singingly, lyrically, smoothly. It's like you're singing out that bass now. Da, 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 The hard thing about singing that is that you're singing on the downbeats, dun, dun, and there's so much syncopation going on the right hand. It actually really is a good gymnastics for your corpus callosum. Take it a little slower. Let's see if I can do that by memory. Let's not do it by memory. But let's do it slowly so our fingers will learn it the right way. Forgetting to breathe. I think we're getting towards the end here, and I'm getting a little impatient or burnt out. And really, it's like mixing late into the night. There's just things that happen to your brain. You get fatigued and start making not as solid decisions as you were before. But breathing. Last stretch, and then we're done. Sometimes it's hard to play things slower, which means all the more that you should be. more time. Come on, this is so much fun. Dun, 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 dun. One more time. Ah! Dun, 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 dun. Ah, almost. Ah. I notice when I pay attention to the bass, it really does help. Ooh, that is a dissonance. Listen to that. Which is fine, but then... Wow, I never noticed how in your face that was. It's just like it's just a 16th note, but still. Okay, last time, I swear. I might put in my own little tag even when I perform this. Do that twice. So it would be like... Yeah, watch down. Walk down! Trying to do it without looking. There we go. Okay, enough. That was longer than I planned, but awesome. That completes the final first pass of the reboot of the 12 songs. Yes, I will write down in my notebook that we did. In addition to Prokofiev, we did just go the rest of the way, did the Bach and the Satie and the Scott Joplin. But for now, I'm just going to put my outline of the toccata back in place and then go turn off the live stream. Thank you to everybody who actually watched all the way to the end of this one. Kind of going off here and there. But it really, and I'll repeat this stuff, not as effusively perhaps, but really just get in the habits, no matter how much of a beginner you are. This is crazy hard stuff, a lot of it. But even if you're just learning if you take to heart all these things about give yourself a run through, mark up the wrinkles with your wrinkles, potholes, bumps, whatever you want to call them, mark them up with your pencil, spend most of your time keeping track of which measures you used your metronome on and at what speeds and stuff. And then treat yourself at the end and be a little playful like I was at the end, you know? It's like part of discipline is cutting yourself some slack. It really is. And again, it's that sort of like a focused attention to just kind of taking a breather and doing something weird or whatever, go for a walk and then come back and doing it. As long as you're having fun. Oops. Sorry, we're not supposed to have fun. That's the whole rule. Single only rule of the music compass is called no having fun. We actually wrote a piece called No Having Fun, and it goes like this. Actually, I had it into it. Yeah. No having fun, no having fun. I said no having fun. No having fun, 'cause fun is not allowed. No having fun, no having fun. No having fun, 'cause fun is not allowed. If you're gonna come here for music lessons, you gotta know just one thing. No having fun playing piano or playing guitar or banging on the drums or when you sing. No having fun. No having fun. No having fun. No having. 'Cause fun is not allowed. That was completely not fun. Hope you didn't have any fun today or learn anything, 'cause that's not what we're about, right? Okay, see you next time. Love y'all. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Cheers.